What I'd like to do now is invite the first speaker to come forward. Jane Rudolph is the, I'll still call her new, although she's been here more than 2 years now, and the department director from Parks and Recreation, and brought a wealth of experience, which has been good for Arlington and therefore good for all of us. Either one.
I'm all set. Hi, good evening. Can you hear me? Okay, great. Sort of shout into these things sometime. Well, happy Earth Day, everyone. I was going to make us all sing, but I think I'm going to just get to my point. So I get to speak to you very briefly about the Public Spaces Master Plan. And so what is the Public Spaces Master Plan? It is one of the 10 elements of the county's comprehensive plan, and it deals with all of our open spaces and our public spaces. And we are in the process of updating it, and it relates to what we're doing here in this group, and so we thought that would be a good idea for me to give you just a little overview so that we don't have any confusion about what all these different plans that are sort of happening. We see a lot of what you all are doing is going to inform the Public Spaces Master Plan, but I just wanted to give you a little background tonight. So in 1994, the county created its first, at that point, called Open Spaces Master Plan. They readopted it in 2005 and changed the name to Public Spaces Master Plan because it wanted to make sure it was really focusing on public spaces, our department's property, but also federal, state, other things. And we've been guided by that plan up until now. But and then I should also mention, we also are part of other plans as well. We also are part of the CIP. We also follow sector plans, area plans. All the different plans of the county often have to do with open space. So, but our master plan is really the policy document that drives how things happen in our department. So in 2013 closeout funding, we received $500,000 from the board, which is really exciting because it was the first time our department was able to hire a consultant to help us guide us through the creation of this plan. So we are currently in the process of hiring that consultant. We've done all of the consultant interviews, and we're looking to finalize a contract with one of the firms. So that will be coming online really soon. And the Public Spaces Master Plan needs to do sort of a whole lot of stuff. But really what we need to do is hear from our stakeholders, which is going to be, we're going to sort of give a needless plug to all of you at the end to stay involved, and also to understand what are our needs now, what are our needs in the future. So, and then finally, one of the things that we've heard from the community, and you'll probably hear from it during this process, is we need a classification system to really understand when we're talking about plans, what's a neighborhood park, what's a community park, what's a county park, what's a plaza. Because right now we can be all over the place, and there is never been an official classification system. I think that will be incredibly helpful as we look to what our needs are in the future. So this is our timeline, and we are currently in phase 1, moving into phase 2 slowly. We put our RFP out. The board authorized the county manager to do an advisory committee, and many of those members are in this audience because we invite them here tonight, and some of them are even, Toby Smith is actually serving sort of on both as a way on your committee and ours to help bridge that gap. There he is. And anybody else from our committee here? Can you raise your hand? So, come on, Craig, raise your hand. I see. I just want to make sure you see these folks because they can be resources for you as well. But they're basically a stakeholder group from our commissions, and we're looking to have somebody from schools as well to help inform us on what we're doing, and also serve as advocates as we go out and try to sort of get as much community input as possible. The other thing that we've been doing in our phase 1 is to pull together the preliminary inventory of our current resources. And that's what you're going to hear tonight when Lisa Grandel, our park development division chief, is going to be giving a presentation on our inventory, and that's where we really are beginning to intersect with what you all are doing. That's where we are today, and this is our inventory, and that's really the baseline we need to create the Public Spaces Master Plan. And then as we go into phase 2, we look at updating our inventory, which we're currently already doing, and then going out and getting a needs assessment. What do people want? What do they see in their parks today? Where do they see their parks going? What is our demand looking at like? What are our wait lists looking like? What do people want to do? And do that, and then move forward into phase 3, which is trying to create the actual plan of where we're going, make those policy decisions. I do want to note that this is an update. So our 2005 plan, which you can find on our website, is the policy document and contains a lot of really interesting stuff. So it's an update to that plan. So things are not, we're not starting from scratch here. And so some of the things we're going to be looking at are the quantitative, the qualitative. So we put observation. You know, we're going to look at the demographics, the same things you're looking at. We're going to look at, we're going to put out a statistically valid survey. We're going to do benchmarking with other jurisdictions around here and also go nationally. We're going to do qualitative. What do people want? What do people feel? What do they like? What do they don't like? We're also going to do observations, and that's where we really want to bring in our committee and other people to go out and see what's happening in our parks. How are people using our parks? What's really crowded? What doesn't seem to be used? So I think it's going to be a whole sort of combination, but really trying to find that fine line between quantitative, qualitative, and understanding where we're going. So that's my plea for tonight, is get involved. When our survey comes out, and if you get it, fill it out, send it in, give us your input. We really need it. Irina Lasik, who you may have met before, because she's also the liaison from our department from here, is our staff liaison, who basically is working full-time on the PSNP. But also all those folks in the audience who are also on our committee can also be a resource for you. So we do have a website up. We just put it up, so it doesn't have a lot of information right now, but it will. So I'm just really pleased to be here tonight. I appreciate you taking the time to hear about what we're doing in parks and also to see how all of our things can really intersect to make a better system for us. So with that, thank you very much.
Thank you, Jane. Now we've got 3 back-to-back presentations, one from each of a major figure in his or her respective department to talk about the facilities associated with that department. So I'm going to introduce each of the 3 of them and then just let them come up and succeed each other. George May is the Deputy Director for Facilities and Engineering of the Department of Environmental Services. And as you will hear from him, he's got a lot of he's got a variety of facilities under his general domain. Lisa Grandel was already introduced to you from Parks, the Development Division Chief from Parks, and John Chadwick, the Assistant Superintendent from the Arlington Public Schools. So we'll have each of the 3 of them make a little presentation. George?
Thank you, John. I'm going to cover 2 areas that relate to the charge on the agenda that you'll see. Thank you, Lynn. And I want to cover 2 particular areas. One is, in response to the charge, what is it that we have, what do we do, and how do we use the facilities we have? And secondly, what are our needs as we go forward to maintain these levels of service as we continue to see growth in the county? And I will also touch upon how we determine what those needs are, how we develop our own forecasts and needs going forward. But the big picture for us is growth, and that's one you've already heard from the others, and this is the indication. We're looking at a 32% growth between now and 2040 for our population. And accompanying that will be the need for additional services in our facilities area. The issue we deal with is where there's only so much space in these 26 square miles of the county that we, the county, between ourselves and schools and parks, control. And we have to share these spaces to meet all of our collective needs. But the tie between meeting our needs with services is, at least in our case, tied to facilities, which is tied to land. These are all interrelated, and as we go through the facilities portion of it, you'll continue to hear about this relation between these 3 elements. When we look at the factors the county uses to measure citizens' satisfaction, 7 of those 16, the ones that are in blue, are in what we call the back of the house. They are the services that the county and the population benefit from, but you don't go to them to use them every day in the same sense you go to a library. So when we talk about what these services are, the obvious ones that the county and the schools provide are just that: schools, libraries, parks, playfields. But the other part of it is, as I said, the back of the house: our water systems, our road systems, our public safety services. Those are the other areas we also use. You came here on either a city street or a county sidewalk, and sometime today you're going to use the county water system. On our water side, we have roughly 500 miles of water mains to distribution. And one of our challenges is this system is aged. Over half of it is more than 50 years old. And one of the growth factors that we deal with in this area is the increasing number of water main breaks. Over the past 5 years, we averaged 150 per year. Last year, we had 208, and in the first 3 months of this year, we had 128. This is an outcome of both our aging system and the fact that the last 2 winters have been unusually cold, which is a major contributor to water main failures. We have a big water distribution system and also a very large water treatment system. The numbers on the slide are not inconsistent. We distribute 25 million and treat 30 million because we're under contract to portions of Falls Church and Alexandria. We have about 1,000 lane miles of street, of roadway. And a lane mile is just our metric for measuring the scope of the work we have to do to maintain our roads. Wilson Boulevard, a mile of Wilson Boulevard is 4 lane miles. A mile of Kenmore is 2 lane miles. But all of these need continuous attention. We have a tremendous effort to repair potholes every year, and we pave roughly 75 lane miles in the last fiscal year. One of our other growth factors is potholes, as most of you have probably noticed this year. So far this year, we have repaired 5,100 potholes, and we hope we're close to the end of the cycle to recover from our winter season. Our snow responses are all hands events. We work 12-hour shifts until we are complete. And I'm going to talk more about our need for salt capacity. As some of you are aware, we had a shortfall of salt the last 2 seasons, and we need to be able to accommodate this usage that we have. The other area that I want to speak to is our transit services. We implemented the ART bus service in 2005, and the ridership has grown 4-fold in these last 10 years. We have added a number of infrastructure facilities to serve it. We have a transit center, we have commuter stores, and we have 244 bus shelters. I'm going to speak in a few minutes how we're going to handle the infrastructure that goes with this additional growth. In our public safety area, 2 factors. We have police operations, the 90,000 calls we answered last year, and our community outreach are reasons why we enjoy such a low crime rate compared to some of the other jurisdictions. We run fire services from 10 stations. They answered 27,000 calls last year. And because of the extent of the coverage we offer and the training we give to our firefighters, we have a Class 2 rating from the Insurance Services Office, which is an agency that sets fire insurance premiums for jurisdictions and municipalities nationwide. As a comparison point, Charlottesville is the only other location municipality in Virginia with a Class 1 rating. As another point of comparison, Alexandria has a Class 3 rating. Of those 27,000 fire calls we responded to last year, 2/3 of them roughly were for medical services. The balance were for fire and public safety. I'm going to address for a moment the county land that we have. Going back to the 26 square miles, this is the division that we have of who owns what in the county. The right-of-way factors, the right-of-ways are both the county roads, the federal highway that goes through 66 and 395, and the VDOT roads within the county, and the parkway. The government lands, which take such a major proportion of our territory, include the cemetery, the Pentagon, the National Airport, the parkway along the National Park Service land along GW Parkway. From the state side, there are 2 Northern Virginia parks in the county, and the VDOT facility down by Washington Boulevard and 395. The other government-owned facilities outside of the county include the WMATA lot in South Arlington. This is how the Arlington land is divided up. And the point I want to make on this slide is the 12% in the orange is the land that we operate our facilities from and provide our core services from. When we look at the facilities in our inventory, we operate out of 105 major buildings. The county owns 87 of those. The largest ones are the 2 adjacent to the courthouse, the detention center, and the courts police building. We lease 18 buildings. The 2 largest leases we have are the Courthouse Plaza administrative offices and the buildings in the Sequoia Complex on Washington Boulevard, where our human services operations are located. Overall, we have around 2.5 million square feet. 20% of it is leased. This is a breakout of the type of facilities we have. And if you do your arithmetic, the number on this page is more than 105, because quite a number of our buildings have more than one function in them. We are always in the process of working to upgrade facilities and manage our properties. Right now, we are doing a number of projects that were authorized in the capital improvement plan the board adopted last summer, and we'll go through a few of those. In North Arlington and lot at 26 and Old Dominion across the street from Marymount, we have an aged salt storage facility. Anyone who drives past there or examines its photograph can pretty easily tell this building is beyond the end of its useful life. We are going to start a program here in another month or so to develop the design concept for how large of a facility we should have to provide us an adequate inventory, and add services on the north side to improve our snow services in that area of Arlington. Right now, when we have a snowplow or a truck in North Arlington to do snow services, at the end of his 12-hour shift, that driver goes back to the trade center, gets the vehicle refueled, and gets another driver and returns to North Arlington. We can improve our efficiency a lot if we just go ahead and provide a shift change facility in this same lot that we have in North Arlington. Another initiative we have about to start is looking at moving Fire Station 8 further north from its location on Lee Highway and determining if we have a feasible site to relocate our Office of Emergency Management and Emergency Operations Center. I'll speak in a few moments on our fire station work of the rationale for moving Fire Station 8. The other part of it is we have an open item from the post 9/11 task force that the county needs a larger emergency operations center, and we're still seeking the right place to put it. This process with the community will identify if there's an option to move it someplace in North Arlington. The Lubber Run Community Center is also another project we're undertaking to replace. That's one of the oldest community centers in Arlington, and it's clearly the demand has outgrown its footprint. We're starting a community process with the first meeting next week to work with the Lubber Run users in local community to define how they perceive their needs. This is a joint undertaking by both DES with Parks and the Lead to develop the programs. Back to transit. We have a lot of roughly 1.8 acres in South Arlington, on South 32nd between Eads and Route 1, where we now stage our art buses. And we currently can park 57 buses there. We're about to undertake a construction program to add a building that will allow us to do light maintenance, wash buses, and refuel buses. This will uncouple us from our need to take the buses to WMATA every night between 2 and 5 a.m. to get them fueled and washed, and result in a pretty significant cost and savings in our operations. The other area of dealing with growth is at the Trade Center. We have a parking structure we built about 6 years ago that has 2 levels. The first level stores our heavy equipment on the off-shift hours, and the second level provides 160 spaces for staff parking. The staff growth has caused an overflow there, and we're now having to park staff vehicles in areas we'd rather use for staging our operations. In the spring of 16, we will start construction to add a 3rd level to relieve some of that congestion, both for County Trade Center staff and school bus drivers. When we look beyond the work that we're doing right now at what are other major needs, these are the ones that we believe are necessary to respond to the growth that's occurring across all of our services. In specific response to the charge, we're looking at 3 areas: our parking, our fire services, and our storage needs. And when we talk about parking for our ART transit vehicles, we have 2 issues. When we rebuild the facility where we now just park buses on an empty lot and lose capacity, we're short roughly 19 spaces. When we look at future ART growth, part of it is planning to take over some additional WMATA routes in the county. And the reason we want to do that is we pay WMATA to operate bus service in the county now. When we run ART buses, the cost is half of what the county pays WMATA. So there's a big payoff for us to do that. But as we grow the fleet to some 90 buses in 2020, we're short an additional number of bus parking spaces. The other issue is, as I mentioned, the facility we're going to build will allow us to do light maintenance, but anything more elaborate than changing a tire or a bulb or putting fluid in a vehicle is going to require a different maintenance facility. We don't have the capacity in the one we're building to do that. Right now, we have a contracted service outside of the county, and we have to deadhead buses there to have them maintained and then bring them back and put them back in service. We would like to have a facility in the county where we can service buses and have the footprint to park those extra 46 buses. And to do that, we need 2 to 3 more acres of land. The next generation of transit is what I guess we could call PostStreetcar. We still need to address the demand for additional transit services on Columbia Pike and in the Crystal City corridor. And the transit group is developing a plan that will be provided to the board in the spring of next year with recommendations on how we proceed with a larger capacity system. Will most likely be a different system than the ART bus system, which are smaller buses. And to do that, we're going to have a requirement for an additional fleet and for whatever type of vehicle it is, and a maintenance facility and a parking facility to go with it. We don't have the specifics, but it's pretty straightforward to say that's going to require another 4 to 5 acres of county land to site it in the county. The next area I want to speak of is our fire services needs. In 2012, the county commissioned a second study to follow up the one that was done in 2010 on examining our fire coverage and the adequacy of our service. We used a firm called TriData that does this nationwide and has a system of being able to develop computer simulations of routes for fire trucks to any point in a municipality to determine the response time using actual data of roads, number of stop signs, number of stop lights, time of day, traffic conditions. And the metric they use is established by the National Fire Protection Association. A full service, full response is to have a response to the call point within 4 minutes of the dispatch from the firehouse 80% of the time. So the study says the 10 stations we have now really need to go to 11 to meet our needs. This next map shows the existing conditions with our 10 stations. The red dots are the stations. The dark green area on the map is where we can show a response within 4 minutes. The lighter green is when it takes up to 6 minutes to get there. And the 2 white areas outlined in red is where the response time is greater than 6 minutes. The study that was done suggests we look at relocating 3 fire stations, fire station number 8 from Lee Highway further north to improve our coverage, and shifting 2 stations in South Arlington and adding a 3rd station, or 4th station, in 3rd in South Arlington, 4th overall, to provide better service at the west end of Columbia Pike. And if you look at the difference between the 2 maps, the dark green areas increased substantially, and virtually all of our service areas are within our 6-minute response. The last area that we wanted to respond to in the charge is the need for storage. Right now, we have a rather ad hoc or opportunistic approach to storage of major county equipment. I mentioned our major vehicles are stored at the Trade Center, but we store police emergency response vehicles and police sign trailers in temporary places in buildings that are eventually going to be replaced with the expansion of the Jeannie Dean Park and the park's master plan. We store our fire logistics equipment, including the equipment that charges firefighters air bottles, in Old Fire Station 5, which is adjacent to the Aurora Hills Community Center. All of these areas are ripe for redevelopment if we had someplace else to move these services. We also are faced with the need to increase storage in the Trade Center. Our water, sewer, street staff need the additional inventory to respond to the increasing number of water breaks. When a water main breaks, we have to have new sections of pipe to put in, and we have to have some place to have them on hand because we don't want to wait for a delivery. The Trade Center itself, located next to Shirlington Village on South Arlington Mill Drive, is our principal area for infrastructure support. If you look at the map, you can sense that it is constrained by residential development in Shirlington Village all around it. We need to find a way to increase our capacity to operate there, not only for the county services, but schools also has their major maintenance functions located there, as well as the school bus parking. One of the things that we looked at was the possible opportunity of moving out 2 of the non-trades related functions we have there. We have a police impound lot where the police stores vehicles that are needed for investigations and possible evidence, and a fire training academy for both our recruits and requalifying firefighters on an annual basis. If we were able to find an alternate location for the police impound lot, we would free up an acre that we could use for additional storage and laydown. And as you already heard from John, we'll have an opportunity to give you a walking tour. I believe the date was May 27th at the Trade Center. And you can see for yourself the congestion that we deal with at the end of a shift when all the vehicles come back. And we have a great issue in making sure everything's parked. What I'd like to leave you with is a wrap-up of what I've covered. Firstly, if you look at the amount of land that we've identified as need in the very near term to match our continued growth on areas of transit, on moving fire stations, and creating space in the Trade Center by moving the impound lot and dealing with our other storage needs, we're looking at a significant increase in land. The fire station relocations require 1.5 to 2 acres each. Now, those would primarily end up in residential areas because that's where the service goes. But we would need 9 to 12 acres of land suitable for industrial use if we wanted to respond to these needs. If we presume business as usual in our current practice of seeking dedicated land for each county facility, we are limited for those 9 to 12 acres for the criteria you see there. Industrial zoning, adjacent to an arterial in a like area, and we need sites of at least 2 acres or better. There are roughly 60 acres of industrial zone land in the county, all privately held, that is not currently tagged for some other county development. So that's our dilemma. And where we end up with is this puzzle. And that graphic was chosen deliberately because there are options, but there are no easy options. One of them is co-location. And that's something that I hope that the working group will consider as you look at the needs you hear from us, from parks, and from schools over the rest of this evening. One option that's on here in the lower level, in the lower row in the green one, building over the right-of-way. That's an expensive option, but it's one way to create space. And the example that I can cite is a number of years ago, VDOT built a 3-level parking structure over I-66, just north of the Washington Lee High School. Now that created space, and there's actually meant to be a playfield on top of it. But it's not the easiest solution to implement. It takes a lot of time and a lot of money to do something like that. So what I'd like to leave you with is the reality for us to maintain our service levels. We're going to need land to site facilities to deliver those services. And the dilemma we have from the facilities and the DES side is we don't have the same constituencies who are advocates of let's build more warehouses in the same sense that many folks would like to see more schools and more parks. And so that's the dilemma. Sometimes we're the guy left at the back of the room. So the demands for all of the services you're going to hear about tonight from us and from schools and from parks are going to exceed the supply as we know it. And the result is we're going to have to make some compromises or some changes in how we do it. Because my fear is if we try to do this business as usual, it's not going to work for us. So what we're asking of this group is to help us with a criteria that can go to the staff and go to the board to help us move forward and out of this dilemma. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Just two very quick things while Lisa's coming up. One is I'm told that the May 27 date to visit the Trade Center may not work. Because of other scheduling things going on down there, we may have to slip it into the June meeting, but we'll get back to you on that as soon as we have that pinned down. But I didn't want you to go canceling your vacations on the 27th of May or coming back early from Memorial Day weekend just to go to the Trade Center. We may not do it on that date. Second quick thing is there is obviously, very obviously, some overlap between what we are doing as a study group and what other parts of the county in the public spaces master plan and in the normal day-to-day work that the county does in its long-term planning. It's overlap, but we're informing ourselves about what is going on. It's not conflict in any sense, and we're, particularly in the Parks and Rec area, dealing at a sort of 30,000-foot level, whereas I think Lisa is about to tell you, they are getting into a much more fine-grained look at a future master plan for Parks and Recreation, which is going to take them better part of 2 years.